Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Deborah Eckerling, author of the award-winning Your Goal Guide, a roadmap for setting, planning, and achieving your goals, and founder of the Deb Method, which is my system for goal setting simplified. And every Sunday night, I lead the Goal Chat Twitter chat. And then Monday, I bring an awesome guest to dive deep into the conversation. And then on Thursday, it magically becomes an episode of the Deb Show podcast. So whether you're watching live, catching the replay, or listening to the podcast, we are so glad you chose yourself today and your goals and are tuning in because we've got such a great group today. I am really excited. So it's January. If you're watching this live, which means it's the beginning of the year and everybody's talking goals, resolutions, blah, blah, blah. For me, goals are year round, but to help people ease into the new year, my January topics have been mind, body, spirit. So we started with mindset and then we talked health and wellness. And now, probably the most fun one, we're going to be talking about tapping into your spirit. And today, and Sherry is so excited, I have fellow Mango author Sherry Richert Belul today, and she is the author of Simply Celebrate, which is also her website, and she's all about celebrating and finding joy in all the moments of life. And Sherry's always so perky, and I'm just so good to see you. And I also have Roger Killen, who did the honor of having me speak with his Entrepreneur International Network back in December, and I am glad to turn the tables and bring Roger, who's the TED King. Can we call you TED King? I'm sure you love being royalty. So welcome both of you. I would love for you to take a minute or two and tell everybody about you. And let's start with you, Sherry.
Hi, Deb. So good to see you. Hey, Roger. Hey, everybody. So I am the author of Say It Now, which is 33 creative ways to say I love you to the most important people in your life. And I say that first because that is sort of the best introduction to who I am, because the whole idea of saying it now for me was one of the ways I really tapped into who I am and tapped into my spirit, which I'm sure we'll be talking more about all of that soon. But I also love to tell people when I first meet them that my work, all about celebration and love and appreciation, actually started from a time in my life when I went through a suicidal period. And so I always think that's important to say, because a lot of times people think, oh, easy for you, or yeah, you can tap into your spirit, that's simple. But the truth of it is that my whole work started from a place of, I just didn't want to be on the planet anymore. And so I'm sure we'll get into a little bit more of all of this later. But basically, for me, my philosophy is to really live each moment fully. And that, coupled with the whole idea of really expressing our love to people we who are in our lives, our family and friends, being who we are in the world, those things have really changed everything for me. Thank you, Deb.
Wow. I mean, thank you so much for sharing that, because I think it's important, especially in the world we live in now, where every day is not great for everybody. And some people have had wonderful experiences these last 2 years. Yes, they exist. Some people have had awful, most are in between. And I appreciate the levity. So thank you, Sherry. And I am going to invite Roger over to introduce himself. Good to see you, Roger. Your turn. Please share who you are, why you're here, and anything else you think is probably relevant.
Hello, Deb. Thank you for that invitation. If you have a big, important idea in your head or your heart, and you want to get it out and share it with the world and have a big impact and build authority for yourself, I may be able to help you. What I do with my students is help them articulate their big idea in the form of a TED-style script, and then I help them find a suitable TEDx stage, and then I support them to deliver their talk in a way that electrifies their live audience and results in a high production value video. And that's who I am when I'm not being a TED King. TED actually wouldn't like me being called a TED King because doubtless Chris Anderson from TED better deserves the status of TED King. Back to you, Deb.
So let's call you the TED King adjacent.
What kind of a TED King?
Adjacent. So you're like adjacent to TED. What I meant, we'll do that, is it's the thing that you're really enthusiastic about helping people get on stages and also sharing their best self, right?
Well, I'm enthusiastic. I see myself and the messenger and the person with the idea as servants to the idea worth spreading. Our job as responsible custodians on planet Earth is to take these amazing ideas that currently are well-kept secrets and use the TED style format in order to get that idea out there into the world where it can actually have impact and, by the way, build authority for the speaker. But the real challenge is to give that idea massive impact so it will result in a positive experience for humanity.
Tapping into your spirit. So what brings you joy? Let's start with the $10 gazillion question. And Sherry, let's start with you on this one, because I think that's where everything starts.
I agree with you so much, Deb. I love that. And I think maybe where joy starts for each of us is, what is our unique definition of joy, right? And I know for me that one thing, I started to tell you just a little bit about that very, very hard and dark time of my life. And I think what I learned the most from that period, because I was graced, obviously, I'm still here. I was graced with an understanding that part of what was happening for me was this sense of repression of who I was. You know, these voices in my head of like, this is how you should be. You should do this. You should be this sort of person. Why aren't you further along by now? You're such a failure. I know some people can relate to this, having those voices in their head, which is the opposite of what we're talking about today, right? And I bring that up though only because what I want people to know is there's a way out of that. And to me, that process, that practice of being the ones that I know you, Deb, I don't know Roger so well, but I know you, Deb, that I know you practice this all the time with how you talk to yourself. You know, the conversations that you make sure you're having with yourself are joyful and are positive. And so I think first and foremost for me, joy is when we can be really, really present with who we are and our lives. And we don't have that sense of there's somewhere else I should be. There's someone better I should be. There's some other version of me. There's some other version of my spouse or my children. That's to me the first step of really tapping into who we are.
Right. Knowing thyself.
Yes.
And you know what? I don't know that I talk to myself. I'm just always perky.
Really?
I have to think about that. Oh yeah. I have a 2-minute limit on stressing out.
I knew that because you told me that before. So do you not have any of those like negative voices in your head? Are you blessed that way?
Yeah, I kind of am. And not to say that I've always been blessed this way, but yes, I think of every day as a gift and every day as an opportunity to help others, to bring joy to others in the world. And when I get frustrated, I have basically an internal timer that only lets me do it for a short period of time, because then it's negative. I'm all about the law of attraction, abundance things. What about you, Roger? What brings you joy? What gets you up in the morning? I mean, other than helping people, or in addition?
Well, to me, joy is a serious form of happiness, and my metric for measuring joy in my life is in terms of impact. At my age and stage of life, my determination is to use my time and talent to have as much impact as possible, which is why I do what I do at both Entrepreneurs International Network and in helping students script and deliver TED-style talks. If I can support them have massive impact, then I feel intense joy.
So the second part of the question is, what's your passion, and is it different? Is your passion different than what brings you joy? What do you think?
No, this whole concept of live a balanced life doesn't really work for me very well. I get so much joy, so much fulfillment. The richness of my life is really driven by the degree to which I can support people with great ideas, get them out there into the world, and cause them to have impact.
So you get your joy from helping others to be able to help others.
Yes, I do. Yeah, well put. Very well put. Yes.
I love that. What about you?
I'm the sandwich in the middle of the joy. The two pieces of bread are the joy, and I'm the salami in the middle.
Well, anyone who knows me says anybody who mentions food gets, the thumbs up and the gold stars for me. The Roger is the meat of the joy sandwich. So what do you think, Sherry?
Well, for me, and this will come as no surprise because of the name of my book, Say It Now, I definitely get so much of my joy, and it's also my passion, really, is in creative ways to express love and to express appreciation and to be with people. I think that when we're talking about tapping into our spirits, the first word that came to my mind when I heard you say that title to me a few weeks ago was really about novelty and creativity. And it's about stepping into, so I love coming up with brand new ways, depending on who the person is that I want to, bestow some love on, to come up with something that's really fun and new. And so that just brings me to life.
So do you have a new way? Do you have an example?
Oh, well, the first thing that comes to my mind, so anyone who knows me knows I love to send audio notes. So almost everybody has on their phone a voice recorder. And so for the longest time, I would call someone and just say, oh, hi, da, 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 and be, whatever I was trying to say to them. And then I started using the audio notes to tell people memories, or to tell them, hey, I'm thinking of you, or, the addition to that. So the new thing to that is that I've started using music a lot. So I have a friend, Lisa, that I've known all my life. We had, crazy music that we used to listen to back in the day, back in the 80s. So I'll call her and leave her a voice note, and I'll play some of that music and just say, do you remember the one time we closed our eyes and tried to walk to Valley View, listening to this song on our Walkman, like that. And it's a way that, and I encourage people to try this, that if you have an idea for something you want to do, when you start to follow it and you're paying attention, usually other ideas will come in. And I bet Roger knows this, right? From, I think the same thing happens when we're creating a talk. Right? We start somewhere, and then suddenly it feels like life is talking to us. And to me, that's where there's so much joy and passion.
Roger, do you agree?
Would you please repeat the question? I got so fascinated with Sherry's answer that I forgot about the point.
Oh. Sherry, do you want to go back and rephrase? Because you said, I'm sure Roger would agree with me.
Right. So, Roger, what I was saying is that one of my favorite things about creative gift giving is it usually starts with a little kernel of an idea, you know, but then that idea, life throws in a bunch of other, you know, maybe you're reading something and it impacts it, or some new idea comes in. And I was saying that I'm guessing it's the same when you're coaching people or working with people to create talks, that it starts with something, but then all sorts of fun and magical things happen along the way. So I guess that's the question. Is that true?
As in a script is life. The more time you spend building infrastructure, the greater the height of the skyscraper can be built on top of it. The more time you spend building the infrastructure for life, the greater a person you can be, the more impact you can have, the more authority you can have. Same too with a script. A script needs to begin with a structure. Once you've got the fill in the blanks, now you can get really, really creative, knowing that you've got the basics taken care of. I think that means I agree with you, but I'm not absolutely sure. Let's go with I agree with you.
I was going to say the same thing, Roger. Why not? I think that's true, right? Like, you do need to have the basic structure and then a little room for some magic. What do you think, Deb?
Always need room for magic. I love that. Well, okay, I do have a thought. I'm just writing that you always need room for magic in the chat because it's so important and definitely something I want to call out when I do my recap. The Deb method, it's all foundation. When you think of the life you want, what does that look like? And when you give yourself the gift of the time to figure that out, then you can build anything. And like both of you, I love finding the magic in between the starting point and the ending point. But when you know what you're working towards, then you can have fun and play with it, right? But when you're all in the writing world, there's the pantsers and the plotters. So the ones who figure out the structure before they write, and then the pantsers who just take a pen and keep going. I'm both. I think you need the structure, but also the freedom. So when you're thinking about what is your mission, what is your motto, that's great. But there's so much more to your life. There's so much more to your goals, but you need that foundation, what you stand for. Then you can fly.
Don't you have a part in your book, I hope I'm not wrong on this, but don't you have a part where you talk about, like, once you know where you're going and you have the map and you're headed in your car, then if you see the big giant dinosaur statue and you want to go run and see it, you can. Is that?
Yes, that's it.
Right? Is that it?
Well, this is why I talk so much about the mission and the motto. You know, what do you stand for? So as you're on your journey, you have a filter with which to make decisions. Does this help bring me my authority? Does this help bring my message of goal setting simplified to others? If yes, then you do it. If no, then you ask, will this bring me joy? Will this have another benefit? And then if yes, then yes. So absolutely. Roger, what do you think is the number one thing someone who wants to be tapping into their message, what do you think is the first thing people need to do?
What was that word? It sounded like it began with H. What's the first thing that somebody who wants to something in their message?
Oh, wants to tap into their message. What is the first thing
that wants to tap into their message?
Yes. You know, when you get a bright, shiny new toy saying, Roger, I have something to say. I don't know what it is. What do you tell them to do?
Well, I hope they don't do that. But when they do, which is frequent, the whole challenge is clarity. If somebody has got this statement in the palm of their hand and it's swirling around and it's covered in fog and mist, then if they are unable to articulate it, I ask them just to blurt. and then I'll do my best to listen intently, and then I'll state back what I think I heard. And between us, I hope we will end up with something that amounts to a clear, coherent thought.
Blurt it out, very much like journaling, brainstorming, whatever, and then refining it.
Yes.
I like that. So Sherry, what about you? What do you say to people who are like at wit's end and they have a message, but they don't know what the message is?
All right, well, I'm going to relate it just for fun to my topic, which is love and appreciation, right? So let's say, which is what a question I get all the time. I really want to do something special for my mom or for my spouse or for my child, but I don't know what to do. You know, it's very similar to what you guys are saying, which is the first thing I do would be to walk people through getting quiet and thinking about a brainstorm, right? It's kind of like the blurting. What do you love about this person? What makes them unique? What do they love? What do you do together? What do you hear them wishing for? Did you ever hear them say, you know, that they were dreaming about something? What do you think they need? What gifts have they given you that have meant so much, right? So just kind of like you're saying, a brainstorm, because love, just like everything else, is a practice. And it's just like everything else, we actually do have to practice loving people more deeply or more creatively. And we need to tap into their spirit, which back to the wonderful title of this conversation today, right? That it's like, in order to tap into anybody's spirit, we have to take the time.
The time. That is, you know, time, it's a 4-letter word that some people think of it in the negative connotation. So we're talking about tapping into your own spirit, but what you're saying is to do that, you have to tap into the spirit of others.
Well, I wouldn't really say that, but what I was answering was only what you were saying about if they had a message, which isn't really, not really the work I do. So I was just trying to say if someone wanted to express their love or appreciation, I think we can very well, and I hope we all do, tap into our own spirit in dozens and dozens of different ways.
For example, oh, Roger, did you have a thought?
I was just going to share that I have a tool that I use when I'm the one with the confusing message. I find that if I force myself to create a PowerPoint slide deck using images and a maximum of 3 words per slide, then by the time I finish that slide deck, I'm really clear on what, in fact, my message is. Now, another way to do it that isn't as good is to write myself an email with no subject line. I just write, and eventually the subject line becomes clear, and the subject line is the essence of my idea.
Ooh, I love that. That's great. So you do this for yourself?
I do.
Write the email first. It's almost like writing the ending of a story and then coming up with the beginning or the title, right?
Well, the body of the email is my blurt.
Mm-hmm.
Blurt it out. And as you write, writing has an incredibly powerful way of forcing into the mind of the writer insight. And by the time you finish that email, you pretty much know what that subject line is going to be. And that's the core message of this idea that otherwise was swirling around and not settling.
Why do you think so many people have trouble tapping into who they are? Roger, do you have a thought?
Why do people have so much trouble tapping into who they are? Do you mean into what their purpose in life is?
Yes, that.
Purpose in life. Yes, I'm pretty clear on what the answer to that is, Would you like me to share my thought with you?
I would love to know what stops people, why they have trouble finding their purpose.
Because it's so obvious. We trip over it multiple times a day, and our purpose in life is something that we are uniquely, extraordinarily, amazingly good at, that to each of us is like falling off a log. It's so easy.
So they just can't see it.
I beg your pardon?
They can't see it.
None of us can see it. We're too close to it. But others, if they're asked the right questions, can see it. And it's not the right questions, it's the right question. Based upon how you have observed me in life, under what circumstances do you find me being most joyful? And when that answer is given by multiple people, they will likely find that thing that you are amazingly good at, do really, really well, and receive an awful lot of acknowledgement from other people as to the excellence that you bring on that thing. 20 years ago now, I learned this lesson on a bus ride on the way back from a meetup group where the speaker was speaking on this subject. I believe she called it, what's your circle of excellence, or what's your pillar of genius, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And on my way home, I realized that since the age of nothing, the age of 4, I have been organizing events. And to me, it is simple. Half an hour later, I'd organized my wedding. Done. Other people are flabbergasted at how well I organized TEDx Stanley Park and other multi-thousand person events. I'm really, really good at that, but was in total denial. Didn't even recognize it until that bus ride on the way home after that speaker was speaking at that meetup. And once I realized that, I then leveraged that in order to do as much good in the world as I could by creating TEDx Stanley Park, by creating Entrepreneurs International Network. And these entities now are having huge positive impacts on humanity. So that's a kind of a long-winded answer to your question, Deb. Back to you.
Well, that's my favorite kind of an answer. But follow-up question, what kind of events did you plan when you were 4?
My mum and dad in Northern Ireland used to have a double garage, and I organized ghost train rides for the neighborhood kids, and I charged them all a penny.
Wow. That's awesome. So what did you do next? So that was when you were 4.
Yeah.
When you were 5, did you try something else? Or was there a leap?
I've been organizing events. My mom and dad at the age of nothing would delegate me the job of organizing Christmas dinner. No, not cooking it, just organizing it. Who sat where, the good plates, the bad plates, any guests being invited. That was my job. That's what I've been doing my entire life without recognizing how amazingly good I was at it.
That's just brilliant.
But we all can do it. It's just that it took this speaker at this meetup to trigger my consciousness about it. And we all have got this unique pillar of genius inside us somewhere. We just got to find it and then harness its power to leverage our goodness for humanity.
And what you were saying reminded me of when my mom would do Thanksgiving when I was a kid. I was in charge of the trays and organizing all the different things. And that totally makes sense that now I organize goals. We can just take it all the way back to those, right?
Yep. You got it.
To those things. So that's so interesting. The other thing too, so before I started to love to cook, we can blame plating because I was trying to figure, I just didn't care about the food. I wanted to learn plating. And anybody I asked about it said, no doubt, you have to cook the food in order to plate it. So I think there's another, some sort of, I don't know, psychological connection to that. Because I do talk about cooking and Instant Pot for productivity. So now I know it goes back to those early days of putting crackers in a row on trays.
It's why we were put on this earth.
I think so too.
It just manifests itself in different ways.
Mm-hmm.
And we're so close to it, we don't see the pattern.
Well, and even for me, I was doing events for Barnes & Noble when I started my first goal group because someone said, will you start a writer support group? And I said, if you think people will show up, sure, let's try it. And I did my definition of what that meant, which was bringing people together. What did you accomplish? What are you working on? How can we support you? Which is basically me now too. So I guess we're just going to merge all of the Debnesses from, I feel like a Hallmark movie, all the Debs from Deb past to Deb present and future. Anyway, so Sherry, what about you? What do you have something? Did this trigger?
Yes, it did. I love this conversation. What it triggered for me is a little bit different, but again, I think it's the same process, which is in the world where I coach and where, I work with people, I ask people to look for something called Pinpricks of Light, which comes from, that time that I was so much in the dark and it felt like an iron wall closing in on me. I had a great epiphany about a tiny moment of joy within that can be like a pinprick of light. And a light in the darkness makes all the difference in the world. And so I invite people that I work with to look for and also to create what I call pinpricks of light, or to look for sparkles. And where this relates to what you guys are talking about is that if the three of us were all here in my backyard and we were told to go look for something that made us feel good or made us happy or made us smile or brought us a little joy, it's likely we three would all find something different, right? We would come meet back and we would each have something different. And we'd probably have like just some sort of innate reason why, like you guys are talking about, maybe from our childhood. And so for me, what I think is really important when we're talking about connecting to our spirit and tapping into that is what sparkles, when you're walking around, like I look at you, Deb, and it's like you have this beautiful red lipstick, right? And so that might be my like Deb sparkle right now, like, right? Because I love color. And that just seems to be something that helps me feel more alive. Someone else might, clue into some other thing. So I guess that's my, one thing I invite people to do is to really pay close attention. Other people might call it like, what's calling to you or what's speaking to you, or, what's that little nudge you're getting in the world. To me, those are all like things that we can pay attention to, because if we follow them, like you followed the crackers on the plate, or like Roger, I'm going to make a ghost train, then those things release this like beautiful, joyful energy.
I think you reminded me of something else. When I used to lead my original writers group, when it was writers and not what it evolved to with goals, was I would do a writing exercise, and it would just be, okay, I would just pick something off of the table. This is the subject, you write about it, and everybody would come back with something different. And what was interesting, and one thing I kind of did, but always wanted to do more of, is people would write their stories, and then after a while you could pass the papers around and have different people read others' work, and then be able to know the people well enough to know who looked at things which way.
I love that, Deb. That's so beautiful, isn't it?
Well, it's you have this gift of the joy in the observation, but Roger has this gift of the impact in the observation. So there's a very nice little Venn diagram of observation going on in this conversation.
Well, right, because if you don't mind me saying, I mean, this is a big topic that we're talking about right now, right? Like tapping into our spirit. That's why I said, like, I feel like we could go in dozens, if not hundreds, of directions because it's so juicy. But but there is the joy of tapping into who we are, tapping into our spirit, tapping into our life force, right smack in the moment, right, where we're not really maybe even creating something intentionally. And then, of course, you know, you take it to this whole spectrum, like what you two both help people do, which is to also really intentionally craft something that's going to be impactful, which is also a whole form of joy and self-expression.
Yes. Well, and you know, well, you both know, well, people are listening also know this about me. You know, I believe everybody deserves to be happy in some, if not all of their life. And if you can't make big changes, you should be making little changes. And so let's talk to those lost people, because it's the beginning of the year, and so I go from January New Year to New You to February Fresh Start, you know, to get all the people who fell off the goal wagon in the first month of the year and pick them back up and move them forward. What are some things people can do to become reacquainted with themselves? Not maybe it's work, but maybe it's personal. Roger, thoughts?
What can people do to become reacquainted with themselves? Well, have children is a good start.
I can't make that a goal, but I
But
like where you're going with it.
But if you don't want to go to that irreversible level, deep conversations with people who care, and particularly with one person who will care forever, and that's yourself. Those deep conversations are a great way to put a mirror in front of yourself and see who you are, what you've become. Writing, journaling is a great way to reflect, self-reflect. I can't think of anything else, Deb.
Those are good. I like those. Oh, what about you, Sherry?
Yeah, I love all of those, Roger. I think those are beautiful. Like, they're all such great ways to connect. I immediately thought, I think Deb knows this about me, but I used to, before the pandemic, I would take myself on retreats 4 times a year. So I would go away where there was no internet, no phone. And not that everybody can do that, especially right now, but people could set aside half a day, for instance, let's say a Saturday, where it's just my day. And I think it's a really interesting thing to see, what do we want to do when we're given a certain amount of time that is just for us? You know, do we think, oh, I want to go, you know, walk in the woods? Do I want to read this book that's been sitting on my shelf calling to me? Do I want to, you know, go on a little adventure? Do I want to pick up the guitar that I haven't picked up? I mean, I think that we get clues, but we need to have a container oftentimes, because our lives are often so scheduled and so busy that there's not a lot of time really for that just freedom to tap into our spirit. And I think our spirit talks to us, and that's kind of what Roger was saying too, like when you're writing, or, you know, all the different in conversation, it's the same thing. We get clues. So that's I suggest people try as much as possible to give themselves spaces of time to really be with themselves.
That's completely agree. The only thing I would add to that is just set aside those times to have the conversations with the loved ones, or conversations with yourself, or walks in nature, those times to disconnect, because that's going to fill you more. So, Roger, I want to go into your center of genius again a little bit. For people creating the heads of impact, getting their impact out there, do you have a good story, a nice anecdote or success story to share of someone who you've helped and how you've helped?
I have 118 of them, but the one that
what sticks out?
The one that made the most impact on me was a lady whose name was Romana. And Romana's husband had gouged her eyeballs out because she was uppity and came to the West, to the University of British Columbia, to advance her education while he remained in Pakistan. And then when she returned to Pakistan to let him know that she was divorcing him and to get custody of their daughter, he used his thumbs to gouge out her eyeballs and then bit the front of her nose off to disfigure her so that no other man would ever want to look at her again. And that story in and of itself is not the real story. The real story is that in 2015 TEDx Stanley Park, I always structured speakers so that the strongest speaker would go first, and then the weakest speaker would go second, because the weakest speaker would bask in the glory of the strongest speaker. And as soon as you have two speakers getting standing ovations, now you have infused into the audience the culture of standing ovations. Well, my strongest speaker bombed. Second speaker was Romana. And during practice, Romana had not been distinguishing in any shape, size, or form. But Romana was completely blind, and so was able to memorize a script just like that, like she was a 5-year-old. So Romana and her coach and I sat down and wrote her script, described her terrible experience while she was in Pakistan, and literally 3 or 4 days later, she took that stage. She began very, very softly. Every time I think about this, I become tearful. She began that as a very average speaker, but then at some point, early in the speech, she said the words, can't even remember what words they were, but you could hear a pin drop. She had captured the hearts of the audience. And then she told her story. And then she told about her transformation to being an advocate for domestic women experiencing domestic violence. And Romana received the longest standing ovation any speaker I have ever worked with received. She not only launched herself as a speaker, she's now a professional speaker, she's also a lawyer. She is one of the most accomplished women I have ever encountered. Her blindness has not stopped her. She is just an admirable human being with the most delightful daughter who loves her to the moon and back. And I feel that I made a contribution to the creation of this great mouthpiece for humanity, extolling the virtues of nonviolence and good communication. She also happened to save the event. And she put me on the map as a TEDx producer. So multiple things happened as a result of that 15 minutes that Romana stood on that stage with her stick motionless, explaining and describing her situation, transforming hearts, transforming minds. Uh, I just have the hugest imagination for that woman. The hugest admiration, not imagination, admiration for that woman.
Well,
Back to you, Deb.
well, we're done. I don't think we can. I don't think there's anything else we can say. No, that's not true. We get.
I have another 117 stories, but we probably don't have time.
We don't. But when you were talking, I did find the link to Romana's TEDx, and I will also.
MONZUR.
I Googled her name, Stanley Park, and it came right up, even though I misspelled it the first time. So I put that in the chat, and I will put that in the recap as well. And so if you go to thedebmethod.com/blog, you will be able to read the recap and get the links from this and the other episodes. So I think, Sherry, do you have a heart-wrenching story as well?
I do have a hive about, as like Roger does. That's the beauty of this work, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'll see if I can make it a little shorter so we can have some time for more conversation. But the first thing that came to my mind is my favorite gift to give people is called a love list, which is basically a brainstorm of reasons why you love someone, specific reasons, very specific brainstorm. And nothing makes me happier than when people send me stories about love lists they've given people and the impact it's had. But the best one that always sticks with me is someone in my community that I didn't even really know was following my newsletter, but she had seen the idea of a love list, and she and her children made her husband love list for his 53rd birthday. It wasn't a special birthday, in terms of milestone birthday or anything, but she saw the idea. She was moved to do it. They made these beautiful lists. She wrote to me and said, "Oh, my husband cried when he got those lists. He was so wonderful." 2 months later, I got an email from Sarah. Her husband had died like that, a heart attack, 53, right? Totally unexpected. And the reason I tell that story is because she didn't wait, right? She could have thought, "Oh, that's a great idea when he turns 60, or I'll do that when," but she didn't. She did it right then, and he got to read all the reasons that they love him. That was his last birthday gift. And she told me that she and her children, right, they didn't have any of those regrets that a lot of people have when someone dies. I mean, of course, they were just grief-ridden, right? But they didn't have regret because he didn't die without knowing how loved he was and why. And so for me, that's why the book is called Say It Now, right? That it's like, don't wait, because we just don't know. We just don't know.
That's a beautiful story, Sherry. Thank you so much for sharing it.
Thank you, Roger.
Yes, you took the words out of my mouth. Wow. In lessons in everything we're talking about today. And that's the beauty of these conversations, because when I put my people together, I don't know. We're just talking, and we get to let you listen. And I just feel completely blessed for the stories and the advice and the insights from both of you today, because you never know. So you have to be out there. You have to do your thing. You have a message to share it, because you never know. And the time is always, when is the best time to do something? Yesterday, second best time is now. So there you go. Before we wrap, I want to leave our listeners / viewers / audience with simple goals. What is one thing they can do today or tomorrow to really tap into their spirit and figure out what is in their core? Sherry, do you want to start with a goal to gift?
I will. Because again, the love list, what I just described, is to me a way to gift somebody with love, but it's also a way to tap into our own spirit. And so what I would ask someone to do, it doesn't have to be a big long list, 3 things, so after you hear this, take 10 minutes and think of a few things you love about somebody. And you could write them in a greeting card. You could text it to someone. You could hide it in their shoe on a slip of paper. You could put it under their dinner plate. You could, thousands of ways to present it, but to do it and just watch what happens. Like, watch how you feel when you're thinking of reasons you love somebody.
I love that. I know I had to use that L word. Can I tack on a bonus goal to that?
Yes.
Because I love to make a love list for someone else, but when you're done, make one for yourself.
Yes. I call those love list selfies. So yeah, so take a love
make
list
a love
selfie.
list selfie. So the next time you need that little boost, it's there. Put it in that place, next to your goals, next to your mission, next to your motto. By your visualization, include a love list, why you love you. And when you need that hit of yay or warmth or whatever it is there for you. Roger, do you have a goal to gift our people?
A goal to gift. A goal to gift. Yes. When you love someone, your goal, one of your many goals in that relationship, is to support them being as big as they can possibly be, because there is no merit in this one and only precious life we have to living small. Support that person be all they can be, and often that will mean finding the idea that they have inside them, in their head or in their heart, and support them get it out there where it can actually have an impact and build their authority. That's my goal in each loving relationship.
That's beautiful, Roger. Love that.
Thank you, Sherry.
I love that too. It's even more so than that. One of the things you just said really struck a nerve, which is there's no merit in living small. Now, I am an extrovert, shock of all shocks. I think, yeah, as our, Sherry, are you an introverted extrovert?
Yes. How did you know? I'm a happy.
And I believe, Roger, you're all out there in terms of helping people not only make their lives good, but improve the lives of others through their message and what they have to say. So we've got 2.5 extroverts here. And I think especially for an extrovert to have them support the others around them in living big, I believe that that's a good goal for everybody. The world would be a such better place if we were all happy. And how do you get your happy? Tap into your spirit. Figure out what brings you joy, what ignites your passion, and what you need to do to get out there. So I love this very heartfelt conversation. I've gotten goosebumps multiple times. Thank you both so much. Before we wrap, will you please tell people where they can find you? Sherry?
Sure. My website is simplycelebrate.net. And if you do a /love, you can download a whole love list toolkit, and it'll make it really easy to create. And my book is on Amazon. It's Say It Now.
Yes, and I have that link in here as well.
Because you are amazingly organized, Deb. You are the best.
I appreciate that. And it's here somewhere. It will be in the recap. So go to thedebmethod.com/. Oh, here it is. There is the magic. Amazon link to Sherry's book. And so simplyscelebrate.com/love is the love list toolkit.
.net, just to be
.net, right. Simplycelebrate.net/love. I just want to make sure I put it in the show notes. Roger, where can people find you?
I would love to say the telephone book, but no one knows what that is.
Right?
You're welcome to call me at 604-408-0888. But you can just as easily send me an email at rogerk@getinspiredtalks.com. rogerk@getinspiredtalks.com. I'm happy to give you a few minutes to discuss your idea, to see if it's TED worthy, and if it's not, to make suggestions as to how you can massage it to become TED worthy.
Fantastic. So you can call or email Roger. You can learn how to make love lists from Sherry. And if you need a little help with your goals, I happen to know this really nice book, Your Goal Guide, which you can find on Amazon or at your favorite place to buy books. If you want to learn more about me and what I do, you can go to thedebmethod.com/goals or follow me. I'm at the Deb Method everywhere. And this is why I do this. We're here to inspire and help uplevel others. And I so appreciate you all. Do you have a final thought, Roger, a final thought, Sherry, before we wrap?
Ideas are magic, but not if they are kept in the dark. Find a way to get them out there. Find a way to give them legs. Find a way to give them wings so that they can have impact and build your authority.
That's fantastic. What about you, Sherry? Final thought?
My final thought is just to remind people, we don't know how long we have. We don't know how long the people in our lives have. Don't wait. Not only say it now, but also celebrate now. Have fun. And love the people in your life.
Say it now, celebrate now, have fun, and love your people.
Exactly.
This is what I do is I say, okay, let's make it simple. It is simple.
It is simple.
Right? Well, this has been a beautiful conversation. I thank you so much, Sherry, and so much, Roger, for joining me today. And as I said, you can go to thedebmethod.com/blog and get the show notes and the links that were discussed in this wonderful conversation. And in the meantime, thank you all for tuning in and for choosing yourself, because when you choose yourself, when you choose your goals, it's one of the best gifts you can give you. So just go on out there and go for it.